I love how Caleb pretty much had his chewing timed to the perfect moment to stop chewing as soon as we went on air. You have to explain what you just told us all, though.
You mean what I'm eating right now?
Yes.
Well, look, I needed a snack, and this is one of my favorite things to do in the summer. Basically, I take some Ruffles and I dump them into a gigantic thing of potato salad and eat it with a fork. And yes, it is a terrible, trashy thing to do, and I have no shame.
The trash person's Frito pie.
It is.
I mean, really though, you're just putting more potatoes in the potato salad. They're just
that's what makes it so meta. Is like it's potato on potato action, and you get like the crunch and the softness and the little bit of toothsome potato, little celery in there. I mean, come on, this is great.
I like your
texture extravaganza.
Also, everybody can go order that right now if you'd like to. That's our recipe for the day. You can order it with your delivery service. Hello, everyone. This is Trends with Benefits. This is our weekly Roundtable Tech podcast here from Digital Trends, where we talk about a trending topic and we kind of analyze it, give you some history of it, talk about the details of it, and maybe where it's going to go in the future. And today we're talking about food delivery. It's something that probably everybody watching has been doing more and more, and the numbers kind of back that up. So much so that you see all of these different companies now that are getting into it and trying to expand, like Uber. Just buying Postmates kind of spurred a lot of what we're talking about, but that's just the very beginning. And there's tons of people ordering groceries online. So we're going to talk about all of that, where it's kind of going. But to start off, we need to introduce our roundtable cast of characters. I'm Greg Nibbler, and to my virtual right, it is
Adrian Warner, aka Hot Nozzle. 3, 2, 1.
Hot Nozzle. So it's getting better. It's getting better. I hope. I'd like to think so anyway. So we got Adrian Hot Nozzle Warner, and then to her right, it is.
Oh, I'm Caleb Dennison, a.k.a. The Whiskey Mist, a.k.a. Chicken Bone, a.k.a. Taquito Slim.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was that?
Taquito Slim.
Taquito Slim. I am a huge fan of taquitos, so I appreciate that.
No, it's not.
I don't know if you would be a fan of the taquitos I've been eating. See, I recently got an air fryer. We got one here. And I've just been air frying anything that I possibly can. So it's like raid the frozen food section at the supermarket. And lately it's just been taquito after taquito after taquito. It's not healthy.
Again. I did exactly that on the 4th of July.
No shame.
I air fried taquitos. Yes.
No way.
I 100%. Taquitos are nature's blessed food.
Who needs delivery when you have an air fryer and freezing taquitos?
That is a good point.
You need to make your own taquitos, stuff them with potato salad, and then...
We've got to just do an episode where it's just our trash recipes that we give everybody. All right, going from Caleb Dennison, Taquito Slim, we have...
Oh, I am Drew Prindle, a.k.a. Professor Prindle. I do the history segments on the show.
And that is what we're going to do right now. So talking about the history of, I guess, food delivery, Drew's going to tell us how this is all going to work, but especially now with how many people are ordering online and how rapidly this has changed. Like, getting the history is a good idea. So Drew, where do you want to start?
Yeah, so the history of like food delivery is a very weird topic because, I mean, I started to look into it, and of course, people have been delivering food from one place to another for ages, right? Like, it goes back to like the 1700s is as far back as I saw that like actually formally happening. But we're not really talking about like food delivery where the restaurant is coordinating it, right? Like, because obviously like pizza delivery has been around for decades, and lots of other restaurants have been offering some form of like takeout or local delivery for just as long. So that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about modern, like internet-based food delivery companies. These ones that they're not the ones making the food themselves. They are kind of just like logistics services that connect restaurants with the customers and act as like a middleman that does the delivery for people. So there's a ton of these, obviously, but the playing field is shrinking as they kind of start buying each other up, like you mentioned with Uber buying Postmates. That's just like the most recent example. So the big services in the US that do this kind of delivery are DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. Those three account for about 80% of the food delivery that takes place in the US. And their history is kind of interesting. Like, so all of this really started around the turn of the millennium, kind of like just after the peak of the .com bubble, which means that like that was right at the perfect time when there was like tons of room for like let's just take a standard brick and mortar idea and put it on the internet, and it works as a business. It's like Jeff Bezos going, I should really just start a bookstore, and then it becomes Amazon. Like that's pretty much what happened with these services. They're like, well, almost all of them started as, we should really just put local like food restaurant or local restaurant menus on the internet. Let's do that. There were so many of these companies that was it. That's all they wanted to do. And over time, they kind of ballooned into these massive companies that provided delivery. So the first one that I could find was Seamless in 1999, which was launched as Seamless Web. And it was literally just that. It was a web-based system for ordering food from restaurants and caterers. Shortly after that, there was another one, takeaway.com, which is pretty big, but mostly in Europe. They were created under a similar premise. They just wanted to make it easier for you to find menus of local restaurants online. A few years after that is when Grubhub popped up, and same deal. They just wanted to be an alternative to paper menus. The idea was that you could just go on the internet or like use a computer or something instead of an actual physical menu in a restaurant. You could go to the Grubhub. Then for a while, things kind of died down. There were a lot of other smaller competitors that sprung up, but really a lot of them were a little bit too late, and they got bought up by some of these bigger, more established companies. But keep in mind, this was also at a time where there was a ton of change happening in the industry. Like around 2007, we got smartphones, so everybody starts to transition from like desktop web-based versions of their sites and starts building mobile apps. And this is all happening with, the mobile web getting better and faster. And oh my gosh, now we can actually track like where my delivery is in real time, and all that stuff starts happening. And around that same time is when we get Uber, which originally was not a big player in the food delivery game, but they kind of transitioned to that later on after they just took over the ride sharing world and kind of realized that they had the corner of the market for just like the gig economy in general. They're like, yeah, we could repurpose these workers for food delivery. We already have people in cars. Shortly after that, we get Postmates, 2011. They're not specifically focused on delivering food, but they do that. They deliver food and everything else. That was kind of their thing that differentiated them from all the other services. DoorDash actually was only started in 2013.
Really?
Came quite a bit later than the rest of the ones that I've mentioned. And it was mostly just like, okay, look at how good all of these other companies are doing. Let's just get a bunch of VC money and edge them out. Like, let's do what they're doing better than they are. And they totally have. They've been a pretty dominant force ever since 2013. Then, also in 2013, a big thing happens. It's Seamless, which was one of the first ones, merged with Grubhub. And we now refer to them like they're supposed to be Seamless Grubhub, but everybody still just calls Grubhub. That's the more well-known name. So yeah, that's the consolidation that I was talking about happening.
Right.
And I want to jump in for a second if I can, because I can't believe that I forgot to mention this when we, have our planning meeting and stuff like that. Yes, we do actually plan this crazy podcast, but
don't give away the secrets, Caleb.
Back in the day, I did food delivery for a company called Biz Eats. That's with an S at the end, not with a Z. But it was based there's two of them. So if you want to go check out Biz Eats with an S, it was a Beaverton-based company, Beaverton, Oregon, just outside of Portland. And at the time, it was a fairly fresh idea. They had just gotten the sort of the infrastructure so that orders that were placed there were, beamed off to the various different restaurants. It had a growing list of restaurants that you could get food delivered from. And yeah, I mean, I was like, schlepping lamb shawarma and you name it, Thai food and Italian food all over the area, rolling around in my old Cutlass Sierra with the worst part of this was like going into apartment buildings and trying to find like the building number and the unit number in the dark. So I actually had this gigantic like spotlight in my car that I would pull out, and I would just like spotlight the apartment buildings to try and find where I was going. Anyway, it was a really interesting job, not particularly lucrative. It was hell on my my car at the time. I drove it right into the ground, driving around delivering food. But I went to go look and find out whatever happened to Biz Eats. And it turns out that in 2015, no, I'm sorry, way earlier than that, Delivered Dish sort of absorbed them. And you know, they basically just converted to Delivered Dish, which I think may have just been mentioned. They got bought out by Grubhub in 2015. So that's my little tie-in to the whole delivered food thing.
Yeah,
That's
that's exactly what I honestly did not have time to name off all of the little ones because there are so many. When I'm talking about this consolidation, I'm really only going over the big mergers that happened here, but there are almost too many to count that sprung up because it was a very it was a need. Like there was a very big hole in the market between restaurants and customers, and delivery just wasn't happening, and these companies saw that need and came in to fill it. So there was just a ton of movement in about the span of a decade.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna move on from here. But yeah, that kind of gets us to the current moment, right? So there's a lot of consolidation still happening. We got takeaway.com or Just Eat Takeaway, the European company that I mentioned earlier. They acquired Grubhub. Then we've got Uber acquiring Postmates. And all of this is kind of spurred from what's happening right now with COVID, which is like these companies were like relevant before all of this happened. But then all of a sudden, everybody switches from, you know, going out and about and maybe just like picking something up and saving a few bucks to, oh no, I'm just going to have it delivered to my door so I don't have to leave. And that has made all of these companies just insanely more valuable than they were before. And some of these bigger companies, like Uber in particular, are realizing, hey, since our rideshare business is dying and since other parts of our business are dying, we just want to buy up some of these food delivery companies because they're booming right now. So right now we're seeing a bunch of companies that were previously like not even particularly involved in these delivery gig economy apps that are getting interested because they're like, hey, if we could just buy them, we've basically cut our losses from all of this COVID business.
Right. I mean, you look at Uber, I think it was April's numbers, they were down 80% on rideshare, obviously because people weren't taking it, but it was up 50% on Uber Eats. And they weren't, I mean, they are number two, and I guess they are number two anyway, merging with Postmates. But that's a huge increase in that. And that's because, like you said, everybody's doing it. Going back to one other thing you said too, with how many other ones there used to be. I mean, there were tiny regional ones that apps that cropped up that were all like kind of bought up and swallowed up to where we have DoorDash and then Uber Eats / Postmates, whatever that's going to become. And Postmates is going to stay by itself right now, but you know it's going to be Uber Postmates or Uber Mates or something at some point. And then you've got Grubhub with Just Eat Takeaway, which that is a huge player in Europe. I think they're the biggest food delivery service outside of China. They were, and now they're adding in Grubhub to get into the North American market. So that's another thing that people are going to see a ton of is with that. And then just seeing all these companies expand beyond that into some of the other places that they're trying to bring up these deliveries. I mean, I have to say for myself, I don't know about any of you, but I have definitely way upped my Uber Eats or DoorDash deliveries just in this short amount of time. I mean, have you guys been ordering more?
I went from 0 prior to COVID to I've probably done it like a half dozen times now. So not like a ton, but
yeah,
it's still like a 100% increase from what I was doing before.
Adrian, I'm curious for you, since you are the fancy person, on this podcast, have you been ordering more? Yeah, Caleb too. But although you were just talking about, ruffles in potato salad. So
I was just you beat me to the whole fancy hot nozzle food situation.
Fancy nozzle.
I feel like Drew is equally fancy. He's the one that says he's not ordering takeout.
That is true.
Baking his own bread.
This isn't about me. You're in the hot seat.
Well, Adrian, have you been utilizing it more?
I definitely was. So there's a number of places because I live off of kind of like a strip that has a lot of restaurants. And when all of those just completely closed down because they were so local that they don't actually use those types of services, I was ordering from those a lot. Now it's a lot less so. But I had always had them kind of consistently in my rotation. There's one here called Caviar, and I think it's used in a couple other cities. But like, I think it's just it's been a weekly staple so much in people's livelihoods, and then now it's like vital if you, especially if you live, in a suburb or somewhere where you're not really going to go drive 5 miles for pickup unless you're Caleb and you need Popeyes. But
No,
You
you
can
got
still
that
get that delivered.
backwards. You've got that backwards. Popeyes is like a 3-minute
oh, that's
drive away,
right.
and I have had it delivered. And I will again if necessary. But you
But
know
the
what?
one thing
You guys just made me think of an interesting question. Like before, when there were so many different options, your Caviars and your DoorDash and whatever, Grubhubs and Uber Eats, how did you decide which one to use? Like, did you ever take a look and find out, oh, well, this one's, charging this much of a fee, and then there's the driver fee. And then, or, did you just go based off of like promotions, like Postmates was doing 20% off that day, or like buy one, get one free Jimmy John's sandwich? Like, how do you decide? I guess it's not as much of a problem anymore because there's really only going to be 3 or so, but like,
Yeah.
what was that like for you guys before?
I mean, I definitely went off the promotion factor was a big thing to get me in the door. That's the same thing with ride sharing. Like if Lyft offered a deal, I'd go with Lyft. If Uber offered a deal, I'd go with Uber. And it's the same thing with this stuff too. But then there's also like specific restaurants that I want. So if they're only on one app, then that'll drive me to it. But otherwise, whoever's got the best deal, because that's really what it comes down to. And that's what I think is maybe going to happen now that we have down to these 3, is that they're going to want to try to pick off everybody else's customers because they're done buying. I mean, I don't know how many more there are to buy up, but I mean, the big ones are bought up now. That maybe we'll start to get more of that competition going to where we get some more deals happening. That's kind of what I think is going to happen with all this.
I mean, like if there's only 3,
Yeah.
then and you're a restaurant owner, independent or otherwise, like why not just be connected to all 3 and get as many orders as you can, And at that point, the only reason for us to order through one or another really is like discounts, whether that's a discount on the delivery fee or whatever. Because I mean, at this point, there's not really enough competition to like urge for anybody to feel urged to do anything particularly special. I think it's just gonna kind of flatten everything out and normalize it, which I'm not sure that's a great thing for us, as
It's
people
not.
ordering the food.
I think the golden days of these delivery services is over, because I remember 5-6 years ago, one of the guys in the office, Ben, used to just keep watch on. He was on like the Postmates mailing list, and whenever they regularly did these like promotions where it was like, we will just deliver something for free. Like it doesn't matter what it is. We'll give you today. It's ice cream. We'll deliver ice cream to you for free. Just get on our platform. And it was totally just like that user acquisition bid right there that they were doing. And they're not really doing that anymore.
I remember that. And one
Yeah.
time it was Jimmy John's, one time it was like Ben and Jerry's. Like, yeah, for sure.
But you think it's going to flatten out? We're not going to get those deals now.
I mean, I think they'll toss us a bone every once in a while, but it'll go in a cycle. They'll just take turns. And so what we'll end up doing is like this week it's Uber Eats, next week it's Grubhub, the week after that it's the other one, whatever it is. So yeah, I think that we'll never really be saving money. We'll just be hopping from one promotion to the next, and there's only 3 of them, so it's really not that hard to manage.
Well, going from like the restaurant delivery side of things, there's also like things like Instacart, which I think is what Uber Eats is probably going to use Postmates a lot for, is from what I understanding, like they want to get into some of that market too, which Postmates does, or at least used to. I've never used it for that, but used to deliver other things. And Instacart is also seeing huge growth. I was just looking, it was in the US alone, online grocery sales were $7.2 billion in June, just in June. So, I mean, there is a ton of money to be made on that side of things. And I feel like that's where the big expansion is going to be as well, is they're going to start once we're realizing, however this pandemic is going to shake out. Obviously, things could change by the week, but it seems to be we're in this for the long haul, at least in the US. that's where they're going to start expanding, is delivering more and more and more to where you're getting pretty much everything can be delivered at home. And I guess that gives me one other question here is, do any of you use Instacart or anything like that for grocery shopping?
I started using it the first time during the pandemic, and I am in love with it. I'm like, I'm never going back to a grocery store again. That was garbage.
And that's something that I think is changing for a lot of people, is that the idea of even going to a grocery store. And clearly there's still tons of people that do go, but the more and more, I mean, now I'm looking at it, and I used to, like, during the start of this pandemic, I would plan my grocery trips because I'd be like, I get to get out of the house. It's going to be awesome. Like, I'm going to the grocery store. It's going to be amazing. And now I get in there, I'm like, I don't want to be around any of these people. Which is sorry, you know, and I know I'm one of the people, but yeah, looking at it that way, I feel like that is going to be a huge expansion, and where people are going to be going for that stuff.
Greg Nibbler, one of the people.
I'm one of the people. Yes. I know going to the grocery store, I'm like, oh, there's so many people. It's like, yeah, you're one of the people, dude.
I gotta share my observation on this real quick with you guys and see what you think. Like, so with the food, you know, the fast food delivery, the prepared food delivery services, one of the issues I take with those is that they really eat into the margins of small business. Like, if you're Applebee's, I don't care about you, but like if you're the local Thai food place, and your margins are getting eaten into, like, I understand a lot of us we need to do this, but they're really losing money. They're still open, they're still moving food, but I'm not convinced that they're making enough volume to compensate for the fact that Uber Eats and DoorDash and everybody else take a percentage off. Like, it costs money to receive the orders that way, and I'm not stoked about that. There's a guy who runs a local coffee shop and makes a lot of bubble tea, and apparently when things were really, really heavy, you know, he had tons and tons of Postmates drivers coming through to grab coffees and bubble teas and stuff like that. And, you know, it was really actually hurting. He was not making nearly as much money, even though he was serving more stuff. He wasn't making nearly as much money as he was when he didn't have to rely on them. So I feel a little bit conflicted on that. And that's partially why I haven't been using it. Like, again, with Popeyes, if I'm that lazy, like, I'm just going to do it anyway.
Right. I had no qualms about ordering Taco Bell at the park the other day, but but I feel you on a lot of these local businesses that are just getting eaten up by this. One of, like, a pizza shop that I frequent a lot and get stuff from, I saw something on their Instagram about how they were, like, telling these food ordering services that are reaching out to them and trying to get a piece of their business know that we just are not interested in giving away some of our profits to you. And a lot of cities now are exploring the idea of capping the amount of fees that these businesses can charge for their services, because it's starting to get into an insane amount of, like, upwards of 30% for some restaurants.
Wow, that's a lot. If you're cutting into 30% of something that the margin's pretty slim anyway on food.
Exactly. And if that's, like, what your business is nowadays, if that's what you rely upon, and that's 30% of your entire business because nobody's coming into your restaurant anymore, that's a big problem.
Yeah. And I think the other problem is, like, there's nowhere else to go now that, like, these big companies are increasingly buying up small competitors, like, now more than ever. Like, it's going to be real difficult for, like, the caviars or even, like, much smaller delivery startups to even get off the ground and compete with these monsters now.
Unless,
so they really have, you know, I mean, unless you can come in and offer better prices.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What happens is one of the big three decides they want a bigger share of the market, so they drop their commission, their percentage of a take. That's going to force the others to do the same. It could go in that direction. I doubt it. I think they might all be in cahoots and be like, nope, this is how much we're going to make. Guys, let's all agree. We're going to just keep it at 20-25%. Nobody budge, nobody negotiate, and we'll all rake in a ton of money. I don't know. It could go either direction, but I'm not sure I feel much better about things like Instacart either. Because while I don't know that they're eating into the margins of these grocery stores, I definitely feel like I'm not getting a great deal on the groceries. I mean, I guess you have to ask, how much is it worth to you to not have to go into that dumpster fire of a of a grocery store, and just not expose yourself to the anxiety of people not adhering to certain norms that you feel are important. But I did Instacart like twice in this whole time, and both times I was just like, I don't know, like, and especially when they screw up the order. Like, I think we've all had some experiences with this where, like, I ordered a head of iceberg lettuce and I got green cabbage instead, and I'm just like, I'm not putting green cabbage on my sub sandwich. You know what I mean? Like, and there were other issues, weird substitutions and things like that. I'm just, I want to like it, but I'm having a hard time.
Of note, DoorDash owns caviar, so
There
it's
you go.
Of
already
course they
been
do.
bought by somebody.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was, and before that, caviar was apparently owned by Square. So they've always been kind of a big player. I thought they were small too. I thought they were even maybe local, but no, DoorDash just kept it separate, so it looks like it's something different. So yeah, all this consolidation, and like you mentioned, though, going back to the local restaurants, because that's a shame. That's going to be too bad if that's the way, if things remain closed and indoor seating and all that stuff isn't there, which is really necessary anyway for overhead. And then these companies are taking that cut. But then at the end of the day, what do? I mean, I guess you can make food at home and not do that, or order your groceries online. But then either way, it's cutting into all that. So it's going to be, I think it's an interesting time to see how this, for a number of reasons, how this shakes out for all of these local places. Or maybe there's a clapback, maybe there's a fight back away from that. Maybe I can't remember who just said it, but maybe like the fees get cut down because that's the only way they can compete with each other, and the restaurants get some power back. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time when it comes to food delivery.
For sure. I really want to know if the drivers are making enough.
Yeah.
I've been trying to be real generous with the tips because I know, first of all, they're exposing themselves. So I don't have to. And
Definitely.
I feel like they need some help. And a lot of these, maybe they were driving just Uber or Lyft before, but now they're relying on the food delivery to make their money. And I hope they're getting paid well enough. I hope they're able to earn enough, because the wear and tear on the vehicle is a real cost that doesn't rear its ugly head until your freaking radiator goes out, or your clutch starts slipping if you drive a standard, or something else. You know what I mean? Like that's not a problem until suddenly it's a problem, and it could be anywhere from $500 to $1,500 maybe to get that fixed. Also, you're wearing down the tires faster, your brakes especially. Like, it's tough to maintain your vehicle so that you can do this kind of stop and go delivery.
Well, there's the other thing too, and I know we're running out of time for the show, but we're going to get into some of the other delivery methods that are out there. I mean, there's drone deliveries for like a tiny bit of Virginia. For some reason, they always get the drone deliveries, but they're testing it all out there. Then you've got some autonomous deliveries that are happening. I think it's Neuro in Houston and a few other places where they're testing it out. But it was something I read about Uber where they could save about $20 billion a year if they got rid of drivers and had all autonomous vehicles. So they are dumping a lot of money into that to even remove that part from the figure. And granted, that'll be a little bit longer, but still, it's going to change quick. I mean, if this thing continues on as it looks like it's going to continue on, I think we're going to see some rapid evolution in all of this stuff, and it's happening right in front of us. And just where it's going to go and what it means for everybody, that's one of the big questions, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it takes one person away from, if we're, concerned about safety and transmission of a virus, it takes one person out of that equation. There's not a middleman delivery. They're sticking something in a box, which could potentially be, sanitized every time or something like that through like UV rays and then delivered to you. So there's like virtually no contact. And that I think people would be interested in.
I've said it before. As soon as I can get a burrito dropped on my front door, like at my front doorstep, like I will order it from that. I will have a drone burrito dropped to my front door.
I think of all the spills that people have when they're delivering food, and like just like pad thai raining out of the sky from a drone. Like,
sounds lovely.
Delicious accidents.
It's like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs in real life, just food falling out of the sky. You know what I mean?
Totally.
But I feel for the people who are going to lose, their jobs to a drone. Like, we talk about people losing jobs to robots all the time, but that kind of automation, I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird time to try and be in this gig economy workplace. Like,
Right.
how stable is it? And is it going to exist for humans, in a year, 2 years, 3 years?
I mean, everything's changing so fast. And that's why, we try to keep everybody up to date on what's going on. That's why you can go to digitaltrends.com. We'll let you know. But I mean, really understanding it and taking a step back is what we try to do here on this show, and just kind of think about, okay, here's what's happening. And that's what we do every week. So I encourage everybody to check out all of our back episodes. And I know I'm wrapping because somehow that was a half-hour conversation that's already gone by. And we are here every single week. So we broadcast live Thursday at 2:30. Caleb's getting right back into that potato salad. That was the only amount of time that he would say that he wouldn't eat it, was 30 minutes, and we passed that. So it's in his rider. But you can subscribe wherever you get podcasts, share the show, let other people know about it, check out the back episodes, and email us podcast@digitaltrends.com too. If you want to comment on anything that we said, or you think there's a good idea for a topic, let us know. Always feel free to reach out to us. We appreciate it. We'll be back next week with another episode. Now that sounds kind of delicious.